Wow. Wilbur Ross, the billionaire, offshore banker, member of the cabinet. He's Trump's commerce secretary. Comes right out and says, I don't understand why these federal workers are worried. I mean, they can borrow against their paycheck, can't they? Apparently, he thinks that federal workers all have like the same line of credit available to them that his children and grandchildren have available to them. It's like, no, they're going to payday lenders. And I mean, a lot of these people are making, $20,000-$30,000 a year. They're going to payday lenders, and particularly when they're a single family, a single head of household in their family, they're going to payday lenders, and they're having to pay 400% interest because of the policies of the Trump administration and Republicans prior to him. I mean, this is mind-boggling. The billionaires are actively, and have been since 1981, since the beginning of the Reagan administration, actively working to turn America into a banana republic. Because it's a whole lot easier to extract enormous amounts of money from a banana republic. It's a whole lot easier to have a very, very corrupt political infrastructure when you're a banana republic. And the question I'm wondering this hour is, how do we stop the billionaires from turning us into a banana republic? Or is it already a done deal? And if it is, how do we roll it back? I mean, just look at this history since 1980. Right? Just look. This is the impact, the consequences of Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, a top tax rate below 50%. This whole shtick that Ronald Reagan brought us in 1981. In 1981, the median wealth, median means half the country's above it and half the country's below it, right? The median wealth of Black and Latino families was around $10,000. And the median wealth of a white family was in the neighborhood of $80,000. Today, the white family has a median wealth of around $147,000. The median wealth of a black family, $3,600. Latino family, $6,600. Since 1983, median wealth for all U.S. households has dropped by 3% when you adjust it for inflation. Over the same time period, the median black family saw their wealth drop by more than half. Meanwhile, the number of households with $10 million or more went up by 850%. In fact, if this path continues by 2050, the median white family will have $174,000 in wealth, which is pretty much where they are right now. Well, they'll be a little above that. They're at 147 right now. They go up to 174. Latino wealth will be at 8,600, slight increase. Black median wealth will go down to $600. I mean, this is like, the billionaires are bringing us an economy that makes money off racial economic inequality. It's Chuck Collins writing about this for The Guardian, by the way. Chuck is an absolutely brilliant guy. And Wilbur Ross is like, well, I don't know what the problem is. They literally are turning us into a banana republic. The world's billionaires. This Bess Levin over at Vanity Fair writing. After Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that, we should tax income over $10 million at 70%, some people, the Davos crowd had something to say about this. Scott Minard, who's the global chief investment officer at Guggenheim Partners, says, it's scary. By the time we get to the presidential election, this is going to gain more momentum. He says he'll be personally affected. In other words, he makes more than $10 million a year, right? And apparently barely scrapes by on his $10 million a year. He says, I think the likelihood that a 70% tax rate or something like that becomes policy is actually very real. It's scary. Ken Moelis, whose net worth hit $1 billion last April, claimed that Ocasio-Cortez's idea would be disastrous for the economy. He says, you have to incentivize people. Even in the U.S., what's going to happen to the two-family workforce? Oh, my God. You mean we have to have a two-family a two-person workforce, a two-workforce family? Excuse me, I quoted him wrong. What's going to happen to the two-workforce family? In other words, two people in the family working? Like, if you don't have that, you don't have an economy? Really? Steven Schwarzman, he's at Davos. He's worth $13 billion. Back when Obama wanted to close the tax loophole that allows Steven Schwarzman and his friends, this is just for private equity firms like Mitt Romney's company, they only have to pay 15% interest or 15% income tax on their income because they call it carried interest. And when Obama proposed raising that 15% maximum tax that Steve Schwarzman pays, which, by the way, Obama ultimately didn't do. He wasn't able to pull it off. Because Congress wasn't able to pull it off. But when it was proposed, when President Obama proposed it, Steve Schwarzman said, it's war! It's like when Hitler invaded Poland in 1939. This is the same guy who has Patti LaBelle and Gwen Stefani, along with trapeze artists, live camels, and acrobats, perform for his parties. No, I'm not making that up. This is the world of our billionaires. And then Lara Trump. Is it Uday or Kusei's wife? Uday is Don Jr. and Kusei is Eric, right? I mix up which one was the tall one and which one was the weird one. In any case, Lara Trump, the wife of Eric, the person who was caught on tape offering Omarosa $15,000 a job, $15,000 a year, a job where she doesn't do anything, if she would just sign that non-disclosure agreement. She said yesterday, listen, it's not fair to you, and we all get that, but this is so much bigger than any one person. I mean, it's a little bit of pain, but it's going to be for the future of our country. And their children, the people who are losing their paychecks, and their children and their grandchildren and generations after them will thank them for their sacrifice right now. I know it's hard. I know people have families, they have bills to pay, they have mortgages, they have rents that are due. But the president is trying every single day to come up with a good solution here. This is our one opportunity. So I would just tell them, please stay strong. We appreciate everything that they're sacrificing. We're behind you. Right, Laura. Wilbur Ross, he says, I don't really understand why people can't pay their bills who are federal workers. He says, because as I mentioned before, the obligations that they would undertake, say borrowing from a bank or credit union, are in effect federally guaranteed. This is mind-boggling. He says, put it in perspective. He says, you're only talking about 800,000 workers. While I feel sorry for the individuals that have hardship cases, 800,000 workers, if they never got their pay, which is not the case, they'll eventually get it. But even if they never got it, you're talking about a third of 1% of our GDP. So it's not like it's a gigantic number overall. That's your billionaire commerce sector. This is what happens when you have a billionaire cabinet and a billionaire president who are being cheered on by a news network owned by a billionaire. And half the people who are commenting on this are people who work for like Reason Magazine and things like that. I'm talking about on CNN, MSNBC, whatnot, who are funded by billionaires, right-wing billionaires. They are trying to break our government. Campbell Robertson has a great piece in today's New York Times. It starts out talking about Gustavo Costa. Gustavo has this rare expertise, critical for everything from space travel to fracking. And he's out of work right now. He works for a contractor. He is not going to get his paycheck made up. But he works for NASA, as a contractor. And he says, I don't know what to do. Campbell Robertson in New York Times writing, these are vital, high-skilled federal workers, and there are usually companies that are willing to offer them 2 or 3 times as much money. But they like the idea, this John Kennedy idea, of service to country. And this has been the thing, and NASA calls it the mission, right? Why do people work for NASA when they could make more money working for SpaceX? Because of the mission. I'm serving my country. I'm part of something bigger than me. And what Trump is now saying, and what the billionaire class is now saying, and what Fox News has been saying for 30 years, is no. Working for the government means you've sold out. Working for the government means you become, part of the problem and not the solution. It means you're the enemy. Now, how long are people going to want to continue working for our government? And what happens to our government when the really competent people leave and they get replaced by really incompetent people? Well, if you want to know the answer to that, just look at the EPA or the Interior Department at senior levels, at the level of the cabinet officers right now. They're starting to hemorrhage scientists. Why would the billionaires want to destroy the federal government? Why would they want to cause Americans to think that it's not a noble thing to work for NASA or for the EPA? Why would they want Americans to even think that people who go to work for the government are losers? Why would they inflict this lasting damage on the government of the United States, on we the people? Could it be that they're doing it because they actually hate the egalitarian idea of America? That they want to end the experiment that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson started, that we've been fine-tuning for 240 years? Is that why? What other possible reason could these billionaires have other than hating the core idea of this country? And what do we do about it? How do you stop billionaires who they've seized the federal judiciary? Their Federalist Society is teeing up all the judges that Mitch McConnell is running like an assembly line through Congress? How do you stop that? In my mind, the way to stop them is to have a major wave, essentially. Activism, as Bernie calls it, a political revolution.